Well, greetings, Mr. Kolazar's class. We're going to look into section 1 and 2 in your notes, the scientific method. Now, the scientific method is going to be something that we've seen in the past and something you're going to continue to see throughout science, but also just a way to just generally think in everyday circumstances. Now, the steps to it are not in a rigid order or exact order. There's observation, hypothesis, experiment, conclusion, and then you draw your theory or your law from your conclusion over time. But we can jump around. We're going to find out as we're going between these steps. But this is kind of the beginning order to go about verifying other people's research to see if you can repeat it. Now, observations, ways to gather information. So we generally use our five senses to gather information. This is going to be known as qualitative. So the quality is what we're looking at. The car is red. Car is red would be an example of qualitative information. Quantitative is going to be measured. It's going to have a numerical information. So if we were to say it's, we've got a table that's 1.47 meters would be a quantitative measurement. And so those are going to be two terms that you need to know. Now your hypothesis, an educated guess, tentative explanation for what is being observed, and it must be testable. We must be able to create an experiment for it. An experiment set of controlled observations to test the hypothesis. So we're going to look at variables. So what can we change during the experiment? And the key is that we can only change one variable at a time. If we change more than one variable, we don't know if there was any effect by which variable. So we're going to call the independent variable the variable that is changed by the investigator, and that's you. So what did you change? And then dependent variable is what we're going to observe or measure to see if something actually did change depending on what we changed to begin with. A lot of times we're going to see if we were to graph this, the independent variable is the x-axis and the dependent variable would be the y-axis, and that would be something we see coming up. So we change one thing and we see if anything happens or what changed during that experiment. Now constants, anything that we did not change during the experiment, and the control, standard for comparison of what we're going to look back to see if there was a change that occurred. Now, as we're going through the scientific method, the conclusion is a judgment based on the information we've obtained. Now, and technically a hypothesis can never be proven. We can just try and try again to see if we continue to come up with the same results. So as your data might prove or tell you that those same results become true, when the data does not support your hypothesis, the hypothesis must be either discarded or modified, and you can start the experiment again so we can kind of go through that cycle. Now, a theory explains, has many supported, our explanation has been supported by many experiments. So we have a lot of theories out there, the cell theory, the theory of relativity. These are all explanations supported by many experiments. And then we have what are called scientific laws. Scientific laws, summary about relationships found in nature that's supported by many experiments. So we've got like the law of gravity. These are just going to be relationships found in nature. We're not exactly sure why all of them work. We just know that they always do and are very predictable. So that's our difference between the scientific law, just the way it is, and our theory. To end, something you're going to look at, to think about, going to be asked in class. Whoops. Let's put asked in class. If we were to look at microwave popcorn states that you need to store at room temperature. We're going to look into designing an experiment to determine if being stored at room temperature affects the amount of popcorn produced. So you're going to need to think about how you would set this up using our vocab terms from this section in order to come up with, is this label actually needed? So we'll give you some thinking time about that before we actually work on that in class.